Hello, I'm Conrad Enciso, and this is the pros and cons of gun control. The efficiency of the constitutional action constituting federal regulations of the uses of firearms has been promoted via a number of gun control laws enhanced since the beginning of the 20th century. It is important to understand the pros and cons of gun control to understand the debate. Pew Research Center conducts a survey in February 2013 stating that 58% Americans worry about lack of protection for their families with stricter laws, while 54% agree it would reduce fatal mass shootings. America has a long history of gun use, going back to the colony time. Colonial times, when the War of the Independence was fought by the people of the country, as the expansion towards the West began in the early 19th century. Pioneers faced multiple threats in the form of marauding Native Americans, tribes, grizzly bears, and other carnivorous animals. This led western and southern parts of the country where everyone, children and women included, were required to operate a firearm to protect one another. Also, farming and hunting were initially the only means of subsistence. Using a gun was like using an axe, a necessary rather than a recreation. Famous frontiersmen like Daniel Boone, David Crockett, and Wild Bill Hickok were famous for their prowess with guns and their legends. Even several fabricated accounts of dime novels and penny dreadful cruise to extraordinary heights. Over the past 20 years, the need for weapons, especially firearms, for the express purpose of self-defense from the nature has drastically reduced. However, the gun has become a part of the national identity of America, a fact that is supported by evidence. The subject of gun control has always generated a social and political debate concerning the abilities that restrict firearms within the United States. In American politics, gun control has been an intractable and one of the most controversial issues. Understanding gun control. According to the Small Arms Survey poll, there are 88 guns for every 100 people in the United States. An alarming figure for a first world country, when the corresponding figure is 6 per 100 individuals in the United Kingdom. The figures are even lower for developing economic across the world. A UNODC report, the UNODC report that United States 67% of all homicides in the U.S. are related to gun violence. Unlike the other countries where various stringent criteria must be satisfied before you can legally own a gun, Americans can simply say, yes, I have a permit, and it's the Second Amendment to the Constitution. The Second Amendment part of this Bill of Rights specifically states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The argument for and against gun laws would never have reached such fervent heights if not for the ghastly rate of mass shootings that have enveloped the nation in recent years. The law that is used to decide the owning of a gun is determined as gun control law, which determines whether ordinary citizens can own a gun or not. A control to restriction is required to ensure that guns are owned by people who intend to use them only in the express need of self-defense and not for crimes. The dilemma of the law is that it can be used both ways. It can render victims helpless and it make criminals out of the ordinary individual. A popular argument often raises the question about why guns are used to protect the president, Congress, members, and other important people, whereas the law prohibits commoners from protecting themselves against criminals. Some critics even term gun control as a form of people control, wherein they surrender everything you possess when you are a victim of a crime, of a criminal act. According to the National Rifle Association, 25 states have adopted "your home is your castle" laws that give homeowners the liberty to shoot people on their property without the fear of prosecution. And only 10 states severely restrict and prohibit carrying firearms in public. According to the FBI crime statistics, in 2010 there were 11,078 murders in the U.S. using firearms. According to the PEW Research Center, the 2013 survey, 58% of Americans think that a strict law against guns use would spell a risk to the safety of their families, and 54% of the option that gun control can reduce mass shootings. The pros of gun control. Let's take a look at some arguments that favor gun control and their rationale in terms of the surplus weapons in the United States. The self-defense argument. One often hears an anti-gun control activist argues that if a gun were banned or severely regulated, only the criminals would have access to them, and the law-abiding citizen would be helpless. This is the eye-opening analogic for this is an eye for an eye logic. Americans already has more guns than it has people. Has this resulted in the lowering of gun crime? The answer is no. Criminals will find ways to obtain illegal firearms, like they do in every country. Regulating guns will at least prevent their access from homes and businesses. In fact, if both parties have guns, it will mostly definitely result in firefights and unnecessary bloodshed. However, the problem may be the guns themselves and their professional in the American ways of life. The constitutional right. Gun lobbyists hide behind the Second Amendment, saying that it gives them a constitutional right to own and bear arms. However, if we take a closer look at the Second Amendment itself, it talks about militia and the army or a fighting force that will protect the states and has a right to bear arms for this specific purpose, not individuals claiming their own defense for imagined enemies. The text reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of these people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But true, however, having gun control laws is intended to restrict the numbers of guns floating around in the systems ready to be used on innocents. Sporting and hunting. Using guns for recreation has become popular sport in the U.S. over the years. A gun A gun ban or stricter laws for sale or ownership will make sure that this harmless activity remains so. To take the point, further, why does recreation require the use of high caliber hollow point bullets that mushroom after striking flesh, creating horrible wounds, or a machine gun that can fire hundreds of rounds per minute? Target shooting is an Olympic sport, but we don't see the sportsmen armed with a Kalashnikov or M4 carbine. Bolt action hunting rifles are made for specifically purpose to hunt, and they do not have high capacity magazines or 800 round per minute rate of fire. Legal possession and why it's not working. The Columbine killer obtained their weapons from a friend who purchased them at a gun fair. The mentally ill predator in the Virginia Tech massacre exploited a loophole in the documentation requirements for purchasing guns, which enabled him to avoid the National Instant Criminal Background Check system. The laws were changed after he had murdered 32 people. After the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut, where the armed man shot 27 people to death, 20 of them first graders at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, the subject of gun control was once more thrown into the national spotlight. The 20-year-old was a shy, lonely individual without a history of violence but possible heavy behavioral issues. He lived in his mother's in a decent neighborhood in Newtown and used her arsenal of guns to go on a bloody rampage. Investigation into these tragedies raised several questions. There was widespread public opinion that the murder couldn't have been so destructive if he lacked access to guns. The point gun control activists make is that each one of these weapons was a legal owned firearm under the supervision of a rational, independent human being. Yet the murders could not have been prevented. Pro-gun lobbyists blamed the tragedy on the mental condition of the young man and not the facts that he had deadly weapons such as a Bushmaster XM15 assault rifle within arm's reach. The bottom line is that a gun is a lethal weapon, and its only function is to kill. The fewer people that have it, the better it is. If firearms are less prevalent in society, criminals would have greater difficulty laying hands on them. There would be thus a lower possibility of firearms falling into the hands of teenagers or children, or preventing a tragedy like the Columbine High School massacre. Supporting sport shooting and hunting, or a gun culture that glamorizes and legalizes unnecessary gun ownership and can despise ordinary people to the fatal effects of guns and firearms in general. Retail firearms trades or individual gun owners can be given compensation if a ban is implemented. Gun control will ensure that there will be a stringent check on the ownership of all our firearms, and the number of manufactured firearms. The immediate result would be a reduction in violent crime. There will be indeed incidents of shoplifting or house theft, but the involvement of guns will be minimal, resulting in less human suffering. In the argument that a tyrannical government needs to be fought with guns, even valid in the 21st century, people need to arm themselves to the teeth to hope to make a stand fight against Big Brother. The Second Amendment required that the American was a young country trying to consolidate its boundaries, and the citizens needed to defend themselves against foreign aggression. But today, the U.S. has the second largest army in the world, and bills $7 billion a year in defense budget. It does seem a bit expensive. Uh, the way I see gun control, I mean, for household people, we don't need the AR-15s that have 50-round magazines or AK-47, fully automatic rifles. That's self-defense. You know, I mean, that's Army regulation stuff. For sporting hunting, you know, a bolt-action rifle shoots one bullet, and then you have to load it with, manually. I know it's in the commandment not to murder. You know, number 6. You know. And the guns don't kill people. I mean, they used to kill people, but it's the people that choose to pick up their gun and fire at somebody and kill them. It's just a weapon, just like a sword or a knife, a bow and arrow, or just throwing a rock like David did at Goliath. You know, and we have to have the rights of the land. We got to follow the laws of the land, as God commanded to. And it's what the people want. You know, if we were just living out there, one person, you know, and not living in cities, we're all together, where we have a vote on either we have guns or not. It all comes down to is your sense of not losing your mind, I guess, and have common sense not to be shooting rifles in the city. You know, at 4th of July or Christmas time or New Year's, in the air where a bullet could come down and hit somebody. You know, you got to be smart about it. They're not toys to anybody just to, think they can play with a gun. You know, it's not a toy. It's a tool, actually. And you got to treat respect, or else it kills people. And that's what the main thing is about, killing people. And I hope this information helps you out a little bit. And that's all I got. Thank you.